the KSUHSMUN reporter,
the eyes
and ears
of Kennesaw State University's
High School Model UN.
During the morning of February 22nd, an assassination attempt was made on Abkhaz President Alexander Z. Ankval, leader of the self-declared Georgian region of Abkhazia, currently backed by Russia. 2 hours ago, 3 car bombs exploded simultaneously in Tbilisi, one outside of the Georgian parliament and 2 near Freedom Square, a major center of civilian discourse, essentially like Central Park within the center of the city. Additionally, there were reports that 2 groups of gunmen have launched attacks in both locations against Georgian civilians, and Georgian security forces have engaged both groups of gunmen. These gunmen were armed with grenades and automatic weapons. During the firefight, Georgian security officials killed a total of 6 gunmen and wounded and captured an additional 3. The Georgian casualties currently stand at 67 dead, 250 wounded, with 8 Georgian security members who were killed and 23 who were wounded. Casualties continue to mount as more bodies are being discovered every moment. Georgian President Saakashvili and members of the Georgian government have strongly condemned these attacks and vowed to hunt down and bring all individuals complicit in these attacks to justice. It appears that the gunmen happen to be carrying Russian passports as well as Abkhaz documentation. Additionally, members of the surviving gunmen detained by Georgian authorities have confirmed that the attacks were meant to be retribution for what they deem was a Georgian-sponsored attack against their president on the 22nd of February. And they also see it as aggression stemming from issues from the 2008 war. Undisclosed sources close to the Georgian government have been quoted as saying that further intelligence has been gathered linking the attack to an ultra-nationalist colonel in the Abkhaz army. This colonel has routinely called for retribution against the Georgian state for crimes committed in the 1990s and up to the 2008 war. The Abkhaz and Russian governments have both come out against the attacks, but the Abkhaz government refuses to hand over the colonel to Georgian authorities. Georgia has stated that unless the Abkhaz government hands over the colonel within the next 24 hours, Georgian military forces will move into Abkhazia and detain the colonel themselves. The Abkhaz government has stated that no member of the Abkhazian government or military was involved in these attacks, and says it will not honor Georgia's request for extradition of the terrorist financier until Tbilisi presents definitive proof of the involvement of Abkhazian officials. It has condemned Tbilisi's threat to send forces into Abkhazia and has said that the movement of any Georgian forces into even 1 millimeter of Abkhaz territory will constitute an act of war. Georgia has called for moral support from the member states in this body, as well as European states that have experienced firsthand the meddling of Moscow in their domestic affairs, and all countries who truly stand for the principles of justice and territorial integrity. Georgia asks them to defend these principles by standing shoulder to shoulder with Tbilisi against Moscow and its puppet regimes in the separatist regions of Georgia. The Georgian government has alleged that elements of the Russian government and the Russian security apparatus were complicit in the planning and staging of the attacks this morning. President Saakashvili of Georgia characterized these attacks as nothing more than another incident of Russian aggression against the Georgian government as well as the Georgian people, and state that it was aimed at nothing more than undermining Georgia's sovereignty and intimidating the Georgian people as they seek to establish better ties with the Western world. The Georgian government has demanded that all Russian security forces withdraw from all Georgian territory, including the occupied regions of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, effective immediately. And Tbilisi has warned Moscow not to stand in the way of Georgia's efforts to bring the perpetrators of the attack to justice. Currently, there are roughly 7,000 Russian military personnel based in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. There are also an undisclosed number of air assets, FSB intelligence operatives, and Russian ballistic missiles based on Georgian territory. many of these missiles are capable of launching nuclear warheads. The Russian government has denied any member of its organization was involved, and they have accused the Georgian government of irresponsibility and unlawfully taking advantage of a terrible event to serve as a pretext under which to reimpose Tbilisi's rule in the independent states of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. In 2008, Russia distributed passports to all individuals in Abkhazia and South Ossetia who desired them, making them unofficial citizens of the Russian Federation with diplomatic status equal to actual Russian citizens. Russia has stated that it will move in and strike against Georgian forces who invade in order to protect its own citizens, those who have the passports. Russian forces have begun to mobilize in Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and all regions of the Caucasus in order to repel and counterattack any Georgian assaults on Abkhazia or any attacks by Georgia on strategic interest of Russia in the region. An unnamed Russian military official was quoted by the international press as stating that any attack by Georgia against Abkhazia will result in the rapid destruction of the Georgian military and the immediate fall of the Saakashvili regime. This source also stated that the Russian military will march even unto Tbilisi in order to end Georgian aggression against Abkhazia. The UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, as well as the Secretary General of NATO, are concerned that this situation could lead to a massive military confrontation between Tbilisi and Moscow, similar to that which occurred in 2008. Given that both of these countries have heavily invested in stronger armaments since the 2008 war, they fear that any further war would create a much larger loss of human life and severe damage to critical economic, social, and political infrastructure within all regions of Georgia, including the occupied territories. The tasks before this committee currently include, but are not limited to, convincing Russia and Georgia to avoid engaging in any armed conflict, convincing Russia to apply pressure on the Abkhaz government with the goal of convincing it to hand over the kernel to Georgia, discussing Georgia's demands for a full withdrawal of Russian forces from all areas of Georgia, especially in order to protect Georgia's territorial integrity. The Secretary Generals have also tasked this body with reaching some form of long-term peace deal between Tbilisi and Moscow so that no future military conflicts happen in the near future. Secretary Ban Ki-moon has recently issued a statement condemning the terrorist attack in Tbilisi, and he urges all parties to refrain from violence, to refrain from military conflict. He says that all forces should withdraw their military assets from the borders of Abkhazia and Georgia. He also says that any further loss of life in the region reminiscent of the 2008 war caused by a few hate-filled individual terrorists would be an absolute travesty, and that there should be no need for immense death and suffering in the region. He has warned all parties involved that they will be responsible if any innocent blood is spilled, and has called for the parties to step back from the brink of war. He also pleads for the parties to engage in peaceful and meaningful dialogue before they do something which they will certainly regret. Unless the parties lay down their arms immediately and engage in peaceful dialogue to settle their disputes, then the world will witness an unimaginable tragedy and an unspeakable suffering and humanitarian catastrophe in the Caucasus within the next several days. If any further updates should come to this committee, the Secretariat will let you know.
The KSUHSMUN Reporter Podcast is a production of the KSUHSMUN Press Corps, the Kennesaw State University Global Society, and the Kennesaw State University Department of Political Science and International Affairs. This production, copyright 2011, all rights reserved. For more information about the Kennesaw State University High School Model UN Conference, please visit our website www.kennesaw.edu/HSMUN. Themes produced by InstantMusicNow.com.